The reading is from Luke chapter 24, verses 1 through 12, and is on page 860 of your Pew Bible. But on the first day of the week, at early dawn, they came to the tomb, taking the spices that they had prepared. They found the stone rolled away from the tomb, but when they went in, they did not find the body. While they were perplexed about this, suddenly 2 men in dazzling clothes stood beside them. The women were terrified and bowed their faces to the ground. But the men said to them, "Why do you look for the living among the dead? He is not here, but has risen. Remember how he told you, while he was still in Galilee, that the Son of Man must be handed over to sinners and be crucified, and on the 3rd day rise again." Then they remembered his words, and returning from the tomb, they told all this to the 11 and to all the rest. Now it was Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary the mother of James, and the other women with them, who told this to the apostles. But these words seemed to them an ideal tale, and they did not believe them. But Peter got up and ran to the tomb, stooping and looking in. But he saw the linen cloths by themselves. Then they went home, amazed at what happened. Word of God, word of life.
Thanks be to God. What if there were no pictures? Thought about this the other day. Up until, 160, 170 years ago, there were no pictures, no photographs. Or what if we added to that, what if there were no first-hand accounts of an unbelievable thing happening? Like, what if all you had to go on was a claim of some kind? Like, what if somebody claimed, there is a place a couple days' drive from here where there are boiling hot water springs, where there are holes in the ground where waters shoot up into the air like 150 feet every couple hours, like clockwork even. Like, imagine if they had no pictures, and when you ask for more details, they say, well, I've actually never seen it myself, but I was told it's out there. Wouldn't it make more sense to believe that the thing actually doesn't exist? That sounds kind of far-fetched, the whole boiling water thing, or the shoot 150 feet in the air thing. Or, like many of us Midwesterners, we cannot imagine an earthquake. Like, what if you knew no one who'd ever experienced one? It does sound kind of fishy, right? The whole earth shakes. I mean, come on. It makes more sense to believe the earth of all things would always stay stable. Or the northern lights. The night sky just turns all kinds of colors, like wavy colors, in the dark when the sun's not out, because of how the solar wind affects the Earth's magnetosphere. Are you kidding me? Like, without pictures, or without ever hearing from people who have seen the northern lights themselves, if somebody just told you, oh yeah, I've heard about it from somebody else, never seen it myself, but I've heard about it, would you believe that then? December 7th, 1941 was a Sunday. One newspaper out west said, area residents shared the same reactions after learning of the surprise events at Pearl Harbor that fateful Sunday. First, unbelief. Then astonishment, then alarm, then indignation, then determination to do what was necessary when the time came. Belief at what had happened at Pearl Harbor came in large part due to radio news programs, newspapers, first-hand accounts from people who were there and who experienced the whole attack. That order of reactions to an unbelievable event, well, it actually seems pretty standard, doesn't it? I'm sure you felt it before, whether it was hearing about JFK assassinated or the Challenger exploding or watching the Twin Towers fall on September 11th, or maybe you can fill in the blank on some other big event in your lifetime. But it's the same reaction to news, whether it's bad and unbelievable, or sometimes it's really good news that's unbelievable. Like your team finally wins the championship. And you know what gets said a lot when that happens? I can't believe it. Or you get the promotion, or you find out you're going to be a parent for the first time. And there is initially a sense of, I can't believe it. You will eventually. Probably. But it's going to take something or some things to get you from disbelief to belief, to live into a new reality. You see that first sonogram from the ultrasound, and you're one big step closer to belief. You steep yourself in firsthand accounts of what happened in that tragedy or that victory, whatever the event was, and as the fuller picture of what happened comes into focus, belief enters into your mind and heart, and life is lived differently from that point on. But what if there is no firsthand account? What if there are no pictures? Like, what if I told you that 50 plus years ago, the first of 12 humans to land on the moon walked on the moon? And what if I had no pictures to back that up? And what if nobody saw that for themselves? I was not alive yet, but I know the government televised the whole thing. The launch, the trip, the landing, the walking around, the splashdown, all of that was recorded. And there are still a substantial number of people who don't believe our nation actually landed on the moon or that Neil Armstrong took steps on the moon. They think it was a hoax. So if it's that hard to convince people of an unbelievable happening and the whole thing was recorded in real time, imagine how much harder it would be to get people to believe something that nobody saw, that there are no pictures of because nobody was there. What if all you had to go on was a claim? And yes, I'm talking about the resurrection of Jesus. That's all we have. An unbelievable happening that had no eyewitnesses. No pictures were taken. We don't even have the equivalent of footprints on the moon to convince our descendants hundreds of years from now that it's not a made-up fantasy. And yet, almost 2,000 years after the claim of resurrection, about 2.5 billion people, about a third of the world's population, claim Christianity as their religion, which is a pretty amazing thing for how little we have to go on. We're reading from the Gospel of Luke today to consider this. Luke tells us that Joseph of Arimathea gets the body of Jesus from Pilate. After, of course, Jesus died from crucifixion. This Joseph wrapped it in a linen cloth, laid Jesus' body in a rock-hewn tomb that no one else had ever used. Women had come with him. They saw the tomb, how Jesus' body was laying in the tomb. And then they went back, the ladies did, to wherever they came from, and prepared spices and ointments that they would use to treat the body as the body slowly decayed, because that's how you honored a dead body. So on the first day of the week at early dawn, Luke says they came to the tomb, they being the women. Later, Luke will name them as Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary the mother of James, and there were other women who all ended up seeing nothing. They saw nothing. And that's sometimes the mistake we might make is that, oh, the women saw the resurrection. No, they didn't. They saw nothing. They saw an empty tomb. But the nothing they saw changed the world forever, so back to the something that they expected to see. They expected to see the corpse of their master, their Messiah, their rabbi. But what the ladies find is a stone rolled away from the tomb. They go in, but there's no body. And Luke tells us that they are perplexed, which is a really great word. Like, think about when you're perplexed. Like, I just put the remote down right there, And now it's not there. Where did it go? I'm perplexed. While they were perplexed, two men in dazzling clothes, which another translation could be, it was like they were wearing lightning, stood beside them, and they say, "Why do you look for the living among the dead? He is not here, but is risen." Perplexed. So the women don't see the resurrection itself, they get to hear a claim that a resurrection happened. They have no photographic evidence, they have no footprints, there's no eyewitness account of what actually happened, just a claim, which is exactly where we find ourselves. You sit here listening to a story from the Bible. You sit here listening to me preach about a resurrection that I didn't see. Neither did the women. We all sit with a claim that resurrection is what God did after Jesus died. Why not do the resurrection in front of an audience? Have you ever wondered that? I mean, Jesus healed in public. He forgave sins in public. It was a very public ministry, like the whole thing. He'd invite Peter, John, and James along up the mountain for the transfiguration. Even when he heals Jairus' daughter, she's dead, and then he brings her back to life. Peter, James, and John are with him. So why not rise from death in front of at least a few people? And once raised, why not show up? Like every now and then at least, maybe once a year, somewhere on earth, anywhere. We don't get a firsthand testimony from anybody as to what the resurrection of Jesus looked like or sounded like because nobody was there. Like, did he just walk out? And then where'd he go? Have you ever wondered this? Like, were there trumpets? Were angels singing? Nobody was there. We have no proof, just a claim. A claim that refutes everything we think we know is true. Like, hey, yeah, water just shoots up out of the ground 150 feet into the air. Like, yeah, that's how water works, right? That's our experience. You walk by a river or a pond or whatever, and stuff just, that doesn't seem like it should make sense either. Or, yeah, see that moon way out there? We put people up there and then brought them back. We think we know that death is the end, for example, that dead people stay dead. And so the only sensible response, really, to this unbelievable claim of resurrection is unbelief. The whole human experience is based on experience. You touch a hot stove, you don't do it again because you've experienced how bad that feels. You mourn the death of a loved one, as just about everybody has, and you learn, despite hoping otherwise, that loved ones stay dead. And yet, we again today encounter this claim that Jesus rose from death, that Jesus is risen. The women go and tell the 11 what they didn't see. And these disciples take the news much like you'd expect. It seemed to them an idle tale, and they did not believe them. And that's where the story could end, right there. Because resurrection makes no sense. Death is death, after all. There would have been all kinds of ways to explain away what the women didn't see. His body could have been stolen. The women could have been making it up. Maybe Joseph switched the bodies at some point. There's a lot more credible possibilities for what happened to the dead body of Jesus than that it rose from death. Unbelief is a natural response. But you know what? Unbelief doesn't mean that people believe nothing. It means they believe something else more. People say, I don't believe it because there's something else they believe more strongly. Maybe it's something else that they're just so used to being true that they haven't made room yet for something else to be more true. And this is where that Easter claim starts its work on each of us and on all of us. It's a claim that brings us to have to question our certainties. Everything we know tells us that everybody dies, and then they stay dead. Even the strongest, even the kindest among us. And yet, the claim we gather to remember here tonight is a claim that has us ask, are you sure of that? The claim is that death is real. Yes, even Jesus experiences it, but that's not all there is. That death is not final. The claim is that death in the very end gives way to life, that what is created overcomes death and all that tries to uncreate what God has created. This unprovable claim with no eyewitnesses asks us, how much do you really believe in death? How powerful do you really think death is? Is death king of this creation, of this existence? Are we all on an inescapable crash course toward endless nothingness? Or is there any room in your imagination, in your heart, in your soul for an other story, for anything that could be more true? Could there be an other possibility? Or does the story of death, because you've seen it, you've experienced it, like touching a hot stove, does it win every time? Believing in death can seem to make sense. Peter, though, is the first one who shows how this Easter story, in having us question how much we believe in death, Peter's the first one who shows how Easter works. It moves him to get up, and then he runs to the tomb, and he stoops down, looks in, sees the linen cloths by themselves. Maybe that's as close as anyone got to footprints in this mystery. But Peter, right then and there, Luke says he was amazed. Peter, right then and there, starts to live into the what if. What if Jesus did rise from death? What if death is not final? What if Jesus is alive and continues to be? What if Jesus really can, as much as God created, what if Jesus can newly create? What if Jesus really can somehow make himself really present among those who follow him in his way? What would our lives mean if this claim is true? What would our deaths mean if this claim is true? We are certain that we are dust, and to dust we shall return. That doesn't take much imagination. That doesn't take any faith. We're certain of death. How certain are you, though, that death is all there is? That darkness in the end does overcome all light? How certain are you that all that is broken stays broken? What if the light cannot be fully overcome by darkness forever? What if the broken can be made beautiful again? What if death has been made to give way to life? I mean, how did any of us come to have the life we're living now? How'd that happen? Can we explain where we come from? Why couldn't the force, the powers, the ways, the one who made life at all possible, why can't that one make life after death possible? That's why God asks through those angels, why do you seek the living among the dead? Through the living Jesus, I give you the gift of life. Why would you think that I would offer you anything less? In faith, we respond to God's claim our whole lives long. Thanks be to God. Amen. I invite you to stand as we sing.